Welcome to another edition of the Basketball Teacher Podcast. Our mission is to bring you discussions on a wide array of topics in the coaching world to grow players on and off the court. You can connect with us on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter, and also reach us directly through email at basketballteacherpodcast@gmail.com. Now, here's your host, Coach Mike Hernandez.
Welcome back, everyone. Thank you guys so much for joining us here for another episode, wherever in the world you're listening to us from, whatever platform you're listening to us on. Thank you so much. Really appreciate the support as we do this fourth Q&A episode. So thank you guys also in advance for sending questions. I really appreciate some of the wide variety of questions that we got here about some basketball stuff and some culture related things as well. So thank you for sending the questions. If you haven't caught the previous three Q&A episodes that we've done, go ahead and check those out. They're really good. And I know this one will be too. And just like those previous three Q&A episodes, I'm very happy to be joined by the head girls basketball coach, New Albany High School, pride of Maryville University, basketball alum, Coach Gliebe. Coach, how's life going?
It's good. It's good. Thanks for having me again.
Resting, recovering. I know as we record this, the season's about done. So did you have that moment where like the season was finished and then you just sort of like got to go home after work? Have you had that yet?
I have one day actually today. So I was like, oh my gosh, which we had our youth league practice this evening, but yeah, it's weird going home after school. It's kind of not, it's like bittersweet. It's nice, but you know, you go past the gym and the boys are still practicing. So you're just kind of like, oh, okay. But
yeah.
But
it feels weird. It felt weird, you know, that first day where I just go to my car. I feel like I'm like cheating or something. Like, what time is it? Am I allowed to leave at this time? Like, this is weird, but yeah. So you have, because you're in a bit of a different situation, you just mentioned, so you have like your youth stuff still going on. So you kind of get a break from the high school part, but you're like still involved. Like your basketball brain isn't turned off yet, right?
Right. Yeah. So I host a local youth league from grades third through eighth grade. It runs for 5 weeks. We have like 32 or 33 teams in it. So so it's a lot. So
that's my Q&A question for you. I'm just gonna ask how. Like, how does that? My brain can't compute that many numbers of that age. So I'm gonna ask you how, and you can answer that any way you want.
Yeah. Well, I inherited it. So great fundraiser. It is kind of the bane of my existence during the springtime. But it's good. Everybody enjoys it. It's a developmental league. So it's not like, you know, we did have some crazy parents last year, but it's not like they're competing for a trophy or anything. So it's pretty chill for the most part. But yeah, it is pretty hectic. So,
Well, I'm glad there's an infrastructure already in place. I was trying to imagine what that would even look like, trying to start something from that, like from scratch. So I'm glad that there was like at least a system for you to sort of like.
Definitely.
But no, in a sense though, that probably felt maybe like you were kind of thrown into it. Like, oh, here you go. By the way, here's this, go do this. But at least it wasn't like, hey, you have to create this sort of thing. So
no kidding. Cause I don't know if I could have.
I don't know. I haven't had to do one. And if I try to imagine me doing it, I would be like, am I sure I want to still coach? Is this something I still want to do?
Yeah, exactly.
So, I give you credit for that. And how long does that run for? Like, what's the,
it's only 5 weeks. So we start, we only play on Sundays. So it's February 27th and then 4 Sundays after that. So it's not terrible. They play a couple games a day. You know, thankful for my assistant coaches that kind of help me and keep me sane throughout the whole thing. So
yeah, that's cool. That's cool. Playing on Sundays, that's different than here in Arizona. Obviously it's a youth league, so it's not like it's a high school thing.
Yeah.
But the Sunday games, that's interesting. But
only youth. Our high school can't do Sunday stuff, but
yeah, that's interesting. Awesome. Alrighty, so we got some questions here. And we'll go ahead and get started with this first one. And I know that I experienced this a little bit. And I think when I was thinking of answers, I was like, man, these answers would have been good during the season if I'd actually thought of some of this stuff, but get some brain fog going during the season. So luckily when I took all these questions after the season was over, and maybe I had a clearer mind answering or reflecting on some of them. So I'll start with this first one, which is, I feel like my players are hitting a wall with their drills and I need to shake things up. And what sort of things do you do to vary up practices? So I'll start. And again, some of this is stuff like, man, I should have done this past season more. But I think for reflecting on like drills or things that you do in practice, I think it's really important to think about like why you're doing them or what the purpose is of them first. And if they are really important to you, make sure that that's like communicated with your players. And I think one of the things that I really liked when I saw once, and I need to get better at doing it, was like taking things from film, like game film, and being like, hey, like here are some areas we're lacking, or have the players look at like areas where they're falling short, and then saying like, okay, here's what we need to do like in practice in order to fix this. So it's something like tangible for them to see, and they can understand like, oh, okay, we better keep doing this in practice so that we fix whatever, this particular issue is. The other thing too that I've tried to implement more is, I don't know if like quotas is the best word, but like goals for your drills. And maybe instead of like having a drill for like a certain number of times that you do, have like a certain goal that they're trying to achieve with that drill, like give them something tangible that they're sort of like working for or working towards, rather than like putting time on the clock and then they just sort of do it and they don't really maybe know how well they did on it, whether it's like whatever drill it is that you're doing. Having some sort of a measurable factor to it might help a little bit. And then the other thing I thought was maybe just ask your players, maybe they have some good ideas about things for practices or things that could be done to vary it up, because maybe they have some good insights that like you just aren't thinking of. But those are some ideas that I thought of. What do you got, Coach?
Yeah, no, I agree with excuse me. Definitely, you just explaining the why behind drills is important, just because, kids nowadays are like, well, why am I doing this? So you just have to be able to explain the why. Something I also noticed, like this year was very, this was like a really, I don't want to say a rough year, but it was just a very roller coaster year. Just with, different things that have gone on with, some of my players and things like with their families. So there were a couple times where we literally just didn't do basketball. So like, I had, one practice, and I think that goes back to like really knowing your players and, yes, we're there to play basketball and that kind of thing, but also like, especially where I'm coaching from, like we have some players that like don't have stable homes. So like, for them, it's not, the world doesn't revolve around basketball like it does for us. So yeah. Just like, one time, we were at practice and, you sometimes, when you walk into a practice, like you can just feel the vibe. So I was like, it just feels really off. So like at the beginning of practice, I was like, okay, what's up? What are we feeling? What are we thinking? And you could just like their faces, you could see it. And like a few of them just like broke down crying. And all they wanted to do was just talk and not do basketball, like, and I know you can't do that all the time, but, then there was another practice where we had a really rough week. We came in on a Saturday morning and played kickball. So like we were still, so like, I don't know. I know it's not basketball, but like we were still doing some conditioning that was getting them excited. So I don't know, sometimes maybe just changing it up, like not even doing basketball, just doing something fun. I don't know. I think that just,
I agree.
Yeah, go ahead.
I think you just sort of have to know. I think part of it though, in what you brought up in your answer is sort of like knowing almost like the expectations of your program and sort of knowing like where your program is at, and really kind of going on with what you just said, like understanding what the role of like basketball is to your players. And that's something that I know that I wrestle with, and I'm in a similar situation to you where like for a lot of my girls, and it's no fault of their own, but basketball is like a thing that they do rather than like something that they necessarily think of as doing year round. Some of them do, but a lot of them it's like they do it for fun. And then, when it's done, it's done. And with that sort of mindset, life can get like really overwhelming, and basketball can quickly just become like another thing on their plate that they have to juggle, rather than something they maybe necessarily like love doing and are super invested in. All of a sudden it's like another thing almost. And I know for some of my girls, it got to the point where basketball was almost like a class to them in school. Is like something that they had to like go to and do. And it's like, they're going to hit a wall a lot quicker, rather than like if you're a team who plays year round and has like ambitions for state titles, and you're hitting a wall in a different sense. Does that make sense? Like you're hitting a wall like basketball wise, versus just like hitting a wall like with life, and basketball is like something that's just like overwhelming you. So and I think this past year, or these past couple of years, depending on what you've been doing with sports, I don't think, I think people hit their walls a lot quicker these past couple of years, or hit their limit a lot more. And
I agree.
And like you said about stability and everything, and like you mentioned, it's kind of goes with like knowing your players. And I know you've been at your program for a while, but I imagine that you and your staff kind of do a lot of work probably before the season, right? In terms of like building relationships. Are you kind of like getting to know your players so that you kind of know when that's happening during the season?
Yeah. And really kind of like the main thing that I kind of base anything I do around a program is starting those relationships, building relationships. So like, just getting to know them. And, with COVID, it was kind of hard to do that, when I took over the program. So like just being able to like actually have conversations with them as people and not as basketball players. It just really, I don't know, I think that helps you, them trust you more, which then helps basketball, and whether or not they think it does, I don't know. But just getting to know your players on a more personal level, I think is just really important.
And I think that helps for you when you walk into the gym and right away, like you did, like, okay, something's up. Like I know something's up, because I know what you're kind of like normally like. And being considerate of that. And I know I've probably definitely kind of just bulldozed ahead with stuff anyway, and was like, I forget all this, like we got stuff to do. And that's like, that practice really sucked. Maybe we probably should have like not done it. But it's hard, and it's hard to like, you think of all the stuff you want to work on, all the stuff you want to do, this, that, and the other, who you're playing next, but then your girls just, or guys, whoever you're coaching, is just like, we're not ready. We're not even ready to practice right now. So, and then you're going to get frustrated. They're going to get frustrated. And then, no good.
Right.
So this next question, I think was made to trap me. I don't know how to, I'm not answering this one first, because I'll come across as like a sexist or a bigot, or somebody who's like thinks that they know all the answers about women and girls. And then that's certainly not the case. So the question was about how do you deal with girl drama on your team? So, Coach, I'm going to go ahead and start with you, and then I'll pepper in my thoughts from there.
Yeah. Okay. So I don't deal with girl drama, because I have a 0 tolerance policy for drama. I don't know. I don't know. I mean,
what do you think of, Coach, when you hear the term girl drama? What comes to mind if somebody says girl drama like on a team? What do you think of? Like, what's that like? I can't deal with this sort of thing.
It's just like, I think it's just pettiness most of the time. Like, well, this girl, and most of it stems from like social media or like hearsay of what they heard somebody else saying about them. I had a situation this year where I had a girl that, was so mad at one of her teammates. So, maybe it wasn't the right way to handle it, but I took them both in the locker room and I said, okay, here you go. You're in the same room with each other. Now let's talk it out face to face, because they don't want to do that. They like to be keyboard warriors, sit behind their phone and do it. So I was like, all right, me and another coach, I was like, we're going to sit in here and we're going to let them talk about it. So we kind of facilitated the conversation. And, it took them a couple days to get over it, but, they were fine after that. So I think addressing it right away, like I'm the type of person where I want to address things as
Mhm.
they happen. I don't want things to fester.
Yeah.
So really, I mean, I would get both sides of the story. And I think that most of it probably stems from social media and just girls being mean and petty. And I tell the girls all the time, like, unfortunately, people are always going to be mean. People are always going to talk crap about you. I mean, it's just kind of, unfortunately, the world that we live in. And you just got to let most of it roll off your back. I mean, I know it's hard, but I don't know. I never really had drama affect me in high school a ton. So this one's hard for me because I'm always just kind of like, you know, deal with it, talk it out and forget about it.
When you played at all, even though if you weren't involved in it, did you
Mhm.
see it going on with teammates? Was it something that ever like affected like team chemistry at all that you were aware of?
I mean, we had, and I don't really know if we would call it like girl drama. We had
Mhm.
cancerous teammates that
Mhm.
um that I don't really know if it was like drama, but it was just like they were just a cancer. So just like their vibe, their negativity,
Yeah.
that kind of affected. So I guess that could be considered girl drama, but it was never like two teammates going at it or, not really going at it, but just like
Yeah.
talking. Yeah. I don't know. I don't
It's,
know.
I mean, hmm. All right. So I think what's really important is, as just in general, I think with program building, I think you really have to work hard as a coach to make it seem like being a part of, your particular program is like something really special and like
Mhm.
something that's like really selective, because it really is. Like you're part of something elite, something selective. You're part of something that like nobody else in the school is a part of. And I think you
Yep.
really have to like build up how big of a deal that is and make it seem like a really big deal, to the point where like girl drama or whatever drama becomes insignificant, in the sense that like you don't want to lose your status about being a part of like this basketball team because of how like exclusive it is.
Yeah.
That's like a very like kind of vaguish answer to it, but I think if you really make it seem like, hey, like whatever it is you're going through is not worth losing your privilege to be a part of this team, like that could be something that could potentially be helpful.
Yeah.
I think that could work. I think the other thing, and you kind of mentioned it, is kind of like building also like some sort of culture or standard or mindset of like, we don't like talk crap about each other behind each other's back or like something. I
Mhm.
mean, it's impossible necessarily to enforce that, but if you can put it
Right.
out there, at least like, hey, like we just like don't do that. Like if there's issues, like we have to solve it ourselves, and we don't
Mhm.
want people outside of our team to think that we have drama, almost like this like we against everyone mentality, like we can't let
Yeah.
anyone
Yeah.
into like what we're doing, that sort of thing,
Yeah.
like that
Definitely.
unity sort of thing. And the other thing, and you can speak to this too if you've noticed this as well, but I've noticed, I've coached girls for almost 10 years now, is anytime you do stuff where like if they're doing like drill or skill work, if they're partnering up or groups of three, I like to figure out right away in the beginning like what groups naturally like go together, which ones like pair up, or which ones will get into groups of three together. And to me,
Mhm.
like I almost identify that like, okay, this is like a potential like click, or this is like a potential
Yeah.
like duo system. And so I'm very aware of that. And so like also like making sure that you're always like rotating and like varying up like who's partnering with who, or who's working with who, or what groups go where, and just like trying to break those up as much as possible, because
Yep.
at least in my experience, you can speak to it too, like guys might be the same way, like they'll click up very easily, and then
Yes.
I don't know, that's not good. I don't want that either.
Right. Yeah, I mean, we do the same stuff. And I always try to make it too where it's like, you don't want to necessarily go with your friends because they're probably not going to challenge you or make you
Mm-hmm.
better.
Mm-hmm.
Like go with people that are going to make you better. So, we always try to do that. I always also try to do like veterans with rookies. So, our seniors, don't go with seniors. You should go with, a freshman or a sophomore or
Yeah.
something like
Yeah.
that, just to um, kind of change it up a little bit. But yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, it's something I tell my girls like all the time, like the best person for you to like team up with or partner with is the one who's going to like challenge you the most.
Yep.
And it was really funny. There was one year I had a girl who like just did not get along with another girl on our team. They like on a personal level, but if they ever had the opportunity to partner with each other and do something one-on-one, they did really well together because they got after each other. I was like,
That's
okay,
awesome.
sure, why not? Probably didn't say a word to
Yeah.
each other at that. They just didn't like each other on a
Right.
personal level, but in a basketball sense, they got it. They made each other better. And I was like, well,
Yeah.
I don't know if this is gonna be anything I'd want to say in like a coaching clinic or anything, but I'm gonna let this be because they're getting
Yeah.
after it, and
Yeah.
so that works, I
Dang, that's
guess.
awesome.
So
Right.
yeah, I've only had that happen once, and I don't know. I feel like that might have been a perfect situation. I feel like if I tried that again, there'd be like a fist fight or a brawl or something. Which I don't know. I hear
Probably.
some coaches don't mind that sort of thing. Like, I don't think I need fist fights in my gym,
Yeah.
but I like the
Right. Yeah.
intensity level though.
Sounds like a lot of paperwork.
Yeah, that sounds like something that I don't want to have to explain. Like, oh no, I'm cool with that. Don't worry about it. Like that's
Yeah.
fine.
Right.
Nothing wrong with some fist fighting. Yeah,
Right. Right.
especially because in our gym we have like a big sportsmanship banner of something we won, so probably
Yeah.
wouldn't work out too well.
Probably not.
All right, coach, let's start with you on some X's and O's stuff. Man-to-man defense. Now, I don't know if this question necessarily meant on an individual responsibility or team man-to-man defense, so I'll let you interpret it whatever way you want. But what's the most important part to you and your staff in terms of man-to-man defense? So what are your like non-negotiable, most important things?
Probably the biggest thing, which is our biggest philosophy on defense anyways, is just communication.
Mm-hmm.
But then also with man to man, help side defense, just because, you know, and I think it probably, you might have to, I mean, I know you can always, stick to your principles and your, what you're most passionate about, but sometimes I think you have to, change things based on your personnel. Like we are not good moving laterally. So we tried to really hone in on our help side defense, just because 9 times out of 10, we were probably going to get beat off the dribble. So it was just really important that, we were in help and then we were helping the helper. So, which, communication kind of eliminates a lot of things if you're communicating what's happening. But I would say the most important things that we really try to work on is communication, and then, help side and helping the helper.
Yeah, I think like one of my overall points of like was like most important, and I coach girls who are not particularly experienced with basketball, so the way that like things are maybe explained or taught or communicated be a little bit different than if I was somewhere else. But I think there is a big misnomer, at least especially at more inexperienced, about man-to-man defense means like not having an awareness of like anything else, because you're just focused on your person, which like you said, like understanding, communicating and help side, and like you said, if somebody's getting beaten off the dribble, knowing your rotations and what your responsibility is. So I definitely agree with that. And I think the other thing that I try to really emphasize with my girls is like understanding like what is your particular player, also like what do they do, like what are they what are they doing, and it shouldn't take too long to figure out like what they're doing, like whether or not that they're a ball handler, whether or not they're looking to shoot or post up, or whether or not they're just invisible and they don't look like they do anything, so you can really play off of them, sort of thing. Like just having that awareness of like, okay, there's been like 2 post entries here, like we shouldn't have to go through what's going to happen the third time here in terms of your responsibility. And so kind of understanding like what the person you're guarding is doing. And then honestly, like I know this is really cliche, but a lot of it is just like effort. Like it's a will to like want to guard somebody, and like even if you, like you said, get beaten off the dribble like many times, like are you still going to like try to force them on their weak hand and still like make them work every single time? And I think that that's something that my girls started to sort of at the end of the season just realize that like not for everyone, but a lot of the people they guard, like they don't like, they're hoping that, okay, if I just beat them off the dribble a few times, then they'll just kind of let up on me, and they don't like having to put the effort to like have to like try to beat them off the
Yeah.
dribble every single time. And
Right.
so just sort of like, it's almost like just like not giving up, or just like being okay with like, all right, you're going to get beat a few times, but you still are going to bring the fight there to them, and you're still going to like stick to
Yeah.
all of our principles and make them have to work every single time through it. That's just it sounds very cliche. I know how cliche that sounds, but like effort, right? Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Definitely.
Are you a how much of like a man-to-man defense person are you versus like zone? Do you have like a certain philosophy, or is it just kind of vary depending on who you have?
Yeah. I mean, predominantly and historically, just like from my playing days,
Yeah.
like I'm a man to man person. Like I want to
Mhm.
get up in you, I want to press you. But with our personnel, we haven't been able to do that. And, we were low on numbers. So, we just weren't able to really do that. So we
Yeah.
switched up our defense a lot. We played a lot of man. But then, depending on their personnel, and then, our tallest girl was 5'9", but probably 100 pounds in a wet paper. I mean, just soaking wet,
Oh
just
no.
just small, just tall and lanky, so
Yeah.
athletic. But
If Breeze
if
could knock her over, huh?
yes. So like, a lot of times we had to play zone. We were really successful with it. But really for us, I want to get back to where we can run and get up in people, but personnel wise, it's just gonna kind of depend. So we might have to play a little bit more zone. So
Yeah. I'm a man-to-man person, probably
yeah,
like too stubborn on it. I'm one of those who are just gonna like force it and be like, oh nope,
yeah,
nope, we're still going, nope, we're still doing it, sort
yeah,
of thing. But I know I could get better at that, but I think I just love man-to-man defense. And honestly, I know part of it is I love coaching people who love playing man-to-man. And so
yeah,
it sort of like leads that way. Like, okay, like whoever buys into it, like they, those are
yes,
the ones I want to play the most. And I
hmm
said I'm probably in love with it a little bit too much. I 1-2-2 and all that good stuff. They all have a purpose, and they're good just sometimes just for variety.
yeah,
But I'm pretty hooked on man to man. I did want to ask too. Uh, I was just curious about we always try to when we do man to man or guarding somebody man to man, always working on forcing weak hand, and I've found at least the past couple years, and maybe it's COVID related and whatnot, that the ability for players to use their off or weak hand is even more of a struggle than even I
yeah,
remember it being in recent years. I don't know.
yes,
Is that
yeah,
Indiana as well? Is that what's going on?
yeah. I don't know. You would think that with all their free time, they would have gotten out in the driveway and dribbled with both hands. But yeah, I mean, it is like, I had a couple, my better players, they just, I mean, I told them all the time, you're the easiest person to scout. You're going to start one way and go right back to your strong hand because you can't dribble with your other hand. So, just, yeah, I don't know what it is.
Yeah, it's and it almost makes me, it almost has made me felt bad a few times this year, talking, if we're doing like, even if it's like doing full court man, it's just like, hey, just keep her over there, keep her on this side. And like
Yes.
almost like try not to say it, but the easiest way to almost say it is like she can't go left or she can't go right. You just like
Yeah.
want to yell it across the court, and
Yeah.
you almost feel bad, but then they try to go their offhand, and then you're like, you get a turnover. It's like, wow, yeah,
Yeah.
I mean,
Exactly.
I
We
said
were
it for a
right.
reason.
Yeah.
But
Yes. Yeah.
yeah, I would say just don't make any assumptions about players' ability, no matter how good of a dribbler they look like with their dominant hand. Just put them to work, get them on the
Yeah.
other side, and just see what happens, sort of thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, kind of going with defense. You like pressing, I like pressing too. And question was
hmm
about teaching trapping. Any tips on teaching trapping and being smart in the trap? Again, I coach more at like I don't know if introductory level is, but or in coaching where girls are kind of learning the game for the first time. So
hmm
concepts need to be made a little bit differently and explained a little bit differently. And so one of the biggest things that we kind of emphasize, it doesn't necessarily take a lot of basketball skill, is just being loud and just being big if you're trapping, just like being as annoying as possible almost, and being as big as possible, and like screaming at the person who you're trapping, and screaming dead, screaming ball, being as wide and big as possible is I think really important, and always just being always being there, just like getting into your trap really quickly, sprinting into that trap quickly, getting as big as you can, being as loud as you can. And then honestly, I think one of the most underrated aspects of a trap, or being smart on a trap, is being able to allow yourself to be quickly okay with getting out of that trap and quickly getting right back into whatever it is you want to get into after. And that, I try to tell my girls that like we spend, a decent amount of time working on, passing out or getting out of a trap. And so that we have to understand that, these other teams hopefully are practicing the same thing. So we should expect in a way that, they're going to get out of that trap, but how quickly then can we just get out and do whatever else we need to do, turn our hips, sprint, and recover into whatever else we're doing. Because I've found this past season, some of the things we've had success with is some of the teams we've played, when they were able to pass out of that trap or dribble out of that trap, kind of like felt like, oh, okay, we beat it, we're good. But then our girls, if they quickly recover, quickly turn and sprint and get back in whatever else you're doing, then it's like, oh no, they're still playing defense again. We still got to like do more work out of that. So just being loud, being as big as possible, being able to quickly pivot and shift into whatever else you need to do if they break it. And then, I think as a lot of us try to explain, like, it isn't the trapper's job to get, a steal. Like, we just want tips, want deflections. I just want the ball to be not going in its regular trajectory, and then, letting, your stealer, or I know if you do, 2-2-1, there's a certain term for that, gapper, I forgot what the term was. Anyway, somebody who's going to be the interceptor of that pass, because as I think those cheap fouls out of a trap age us very quickly when we get those reach-in fouls out of it. So those are some things I thought of. What do you have, Coach?
Kind of piggybacking off of that. I think it's important to, like, we talk about being able to explain to players like why you're doing something. So like with our press, when we were able to do it, it was always important to like explain to them, like, the goal is not to get a steal in the trap. Like you are there to basically just create chaos and to create a difficult pass. The goal is to steal that long pass. Like that's what the objective is. So we don't need you like trying to reach for the ball and, trying to foul and that kind of stuff. We just need you to stop her, make it difficult for her to make the pass. And then we called her the floater. I don't know what the term is. Hey,
they know what it is, as long as they know.
Yeah, exactly. So our goal was then for the floater to pick off that pass. And then obviously, if we didn't get the trap, our girls knew how to recover on defense, like you said. So, so that was big. And then really, you said, being loud, like your mouth is a defender, your hands are a defender. It's not just like your body. So, we always teach that too. Like when the ball is dead, like you're yelling dead, not only to annoy the girl on offense, but you're also letting your teammates know, okay, she's dead. So now I can get up in the passing lane a little bit, or whatever the case may be. So I think maybe just explaining your objective of the trap, what you're wanting out of it. And,
I think something that I didn't have, and I realized this, this last year, is when doing a press, we do some 2-2-1, and having to kind of take a step back and make sure that the floater, I think is the term that you use, kind of knew how to read like what was happening, and being able to like, be like intercept that pass, and being able to anticipate what's happening, because I've had some like really, really strong traps, and because I was like, all right, we worked on traps, like we got it, we're killing it. And then we did, but then we would have like our, whoever interceptor was, like be completely out of position, or like not be able to anticipate or not know like where this pass was going. And I was like, oh, well, I probably didn't do much practicing. Maybe I assumed that they would know what that would look like. But you don't want to do all the hard work and then like they still pass out of it, or they like do that little floater pass and it gets through because your player wasn't ready for it. So I think making sure that like your players know, like, okay, like, hey, your teammates are doing this awesome job trapping. You got to like know like what's happening here, and like you got to be able to read and be able to understand the situation. And I know that can sometimes be hard, because sometimes your trappers are like your players who have like maybe sometimes like the best instincts for those sort of things, but they're not the ones who are going to be the ones intercepting it. So like you got to have to figure out like, okay, who can I put here who's got enough basketball instincts, but I don't want them to be the one who's trapping because I need them to be intercepting it. And so kind of placing everyone in the right spot, so to speak.
Definitely.
But just just anything but fouling.
Yes, dear Lord.
Please don't foul.
Yes.
No reaching fouls,
Right,
especially if you already have like 1 or 2 fouls and I'm trusting you out there, and then there's your third. What did I just say?
Exactly.
Goodness. All righty. Coach, have you ever coached a team who has been wildly inconsistent on offense? There was no follow-up to that, but I guess I'll start with that first one, and then I'll give you a follow-up, I guess, depending on your answer. Have you ever coached a team like that?
I have.
And what do you think that was like due to? What was inconsistent? Just hot and cold shooting, or just execution wise? What was like inconsistent about them?
Oh man. I think there's a lot of factors that that play into this. And it's funny, as a coach, you take the blame for everything. And you rack your brain day in and day out about, what could have gone differently, what you could do better. And finally, last few games, my assistant coaches were like, Coach, it is not all on you. Like at some point, these girls also have to be ready to play. So for me, I guess, like I've coached inconsistent teams. It's ridiculously hard to have a game plan going into the next game because you literally have no idea what to expect. Like we played, just for example, we played one team on a Thursday, got beat by 35, played terrible. On that next Saturday, we were playing a conference team who has the second best player in the state. Like they're very good. They're just a very good team, always been really good. And we played them to 13 points. One of my girls went off, she had 7 threes. So it's like, it's hard to game plan. And I don't know, could it be lack of getting shots up in practice? I don't know, because, we get a lot of shots up, but I think a lot of times too, they also have to get themselves ready to go on offense. One, you shouldn't have to get them pumped up to play a basketball game because that's what they're out there to do. But it was always easy, if they had questions or they were mad about why they weren't shooting well, and I always said, you're not shooting well, and I don't know why you're mad. Like, why, I would always say, why do you expect your shots to go in if you're not putting in the time to make sure that you can be confident? Like, you can't be mad about something that's not going well if you don't practice it. Like, we can do so much with the time that we have you in practice, but if you want things to be better, you also have to do things on your own. Maybe that's coming in 15 minutes before practice, stay in 20 minutes after to shoot. So I don't know. I feel like I kind of went on a tangent there, but
it's
like
true.
That was always my that was always my question. Like, why, like what you like, there should be no expectation that you are making these game-like situations or game-like shots, because in practice, you're not going through drills like it's a game situation. So I don't know.
Yeah,
don't
no,
know.
it's one of the more challenging bridges is making sure that like what you do in practice, or the players making sure that what they're doing in practice rather like translates into something that they'll easily be able to replicate like in a
Yeah.
game and be able to like, oh, okay, like this is just like how I did in practice.
Yes.
And I think that the most inconsistent teams I've ever had were like that, where they didn't get shots up, or if
Hmm.
they did, they weren't necessarily getting them up in the way that they would be in a game, or they weren't necessarily as like tired as they would be in a
Yeah.
game trying to get those shots up, or situations like that. And I think one of the biggest challenges when I've had a team like that was that things that we did in practice, whether it was their individual work or even if they were working like a 3-on-3 type drill, like the defense wasn't good enough to what I know they were going to see in a game. And I
Right.
knew that, like, okay, what you are being successful with on offense now, like in my mind, like I know this won't work. Like I know what I'm seeing here on
Yeah.
defense is not at all what you are going to see. And then it's like, well, yeah, what do we expect to have happen? Because, oh, this team that we're playing is like really going like all out and really like, you
Yeah.
know, coming after you and is angry at you and is like attacking you. And under like, girls, if we're not doing this in practice, like this is not going to translate to what we need in a game.
Yeah.
So definitely agree with that point. I think the other thing that I try to do sometimes better than others is have look at film and be like, all right, like if you look at film and look where you're getting your shots from, like what are you doing on your own, like you said, to get these shots on your own, or
Yeah.
like what are we doing
Yeah.
in practice, or what are you doing in practice, like to get a shot, or even like attacking the basket, or whatever the case, that looks like what this does in a game. Because if you're not practicing it, like if you're not seeing those sort of situations, then you can't expect, like you said, for it all just to sort of like work itself out in a game.
Yeah.
So I try to, if I remember, and again, I'm better at it sometimes than others, like thinking about like, okay, where did all these shots come from? Like, where do these girls need to get shots in? Where do these girls need to
Yeah.
get shots in? Should this girl ever shoot the ball ever in her life? Like things of that nature.
Right.
Um, and I think the other thing too, kind of thinking back on like what we kind of almost can control as coaches is making sure that like we don't put are like players who do put in a lot of work. Let's say we got, a team that's doing a lot of those things, is making sure that we're not trying to tell them to do something like wildly different when they get in a game, like to try
Yeah.
and like break that. Like if you trust a girl and she's a shooter and she's missed a few, just like keep letting her shoot. Because if you tell her to start attacking the basket, she might start forcing it. And then it's like, wait a minute, you're
Yeah.
wide open though. I wanted you to shoot.
Right.
So there
Right.
is a way in, and I know I've been there where like I kind of like out coach myself, and I like was trying to like say one thing and they interpreted it somewhere else. And I was like, oh, this isn't good.
Yeah.
Now we're not taking open shots anymore. Now we're
Right.
doing like all this other stuff. And I had a situation with I was telling about girls about, we can get more like shots up or things like that. I forgot the exact situation. We had a girl who had like a wide open layup, and then she like dribbled it out and tried to shoot a three. And I was like, oh no, like
Oh no.
you told me to shoot more. I
Yikes.
was like, yeah,
Yeah.
well.
Yeah. You're
So
right.
I
You're right.
mean, when you have situations like that, like do you have one-on-one conversations with girls? Like, do you notice like when they're frustrated about like their offense, you let them know like, hey, like you gotta put more work in? Like, did you have those conversations?
Yeah, I do. And I'm also like, I'll also call kids out in practice too. Like, I'm not afraid to
Mm,
do that because, like, I don't know, sometimes I think everybody needs to hear it, but yeah, I mean, it's
yeah.
just, those conversations, and I literally will just be like, I don't understand why you expect things to go in if you're not putting, I mean, we put them in game situations in practice, but like, and like you said, the defense thing, that's a huge thing. Our varsity is playing against JV players, and, that makes it difficult. But yeah, like, why are you expecting for things to be great and be perfect if, you know, you get pissed at the ball? Sorry, language. You
All
get
good.
mad that you can't dribble with your left hand. You you bobble it, but then like, when are you ever practicing with your left hand? Like,
Yeah.
let's just, it's such a simple way to think, but
Yeah.
it's
And
not always.
I think it leads to like an overall, like just sort of idea for us as coaches we really can't assume that our players are like doing anything. Like it's a lot easier to
Right.
just assume they do nothing
Yes, it
unless we can
is.
actually
Really.
see it. Just
Yeah.
because that way, like you don't go in with any like false like expectations of what's happening. I'm
Yeah.
not saying don't expect anything out of your players. You can certainly establish like what you need, what you expect, and maybe they'll agree to it and everything will be good to go. But like you don't want to assume unless you've explicitly had that conversation that any of these things are happening like outside of your
Yeah.
gym. Like you don't want to be like, oh well, clearly they're turning the ball over if they're left hands, so they're going to be working on it a lot. Like I
Yeah.
don't know
Yeah.
about that.
Probably not.
You might want to make sure you talk about that first. But
Yeah.
yeah, I think that's just kind of like a big thing is like really just like you said, you can think like what can I do as a coach to put themselves into situations, but then as you kind of mentioned, like, well, what about the inconsistency is like a system, like or the system itself like is inconsistent,
Yeah.
or is it we're missing wide open shots or blowing opportunities at the rim, or like we're not hitting cutters or bad passes? What is the
Yeah.
error to it, and what can
Yep.
we do? But also like what do we got to get our players doing also to get them there? So
Yep.
as coaches,
Definitely.
forgive yourself a little bit. It's not about you.
Yes. Yeah. Give
Sometimes I think
yourself some
you and
grace.
I need to hear that too.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. It's okay to give yourself some grace every once in a while. So,
So this last one, again, I think this question's here to get me. Somebody's gonna send this to like the officiating association, but oh, I heard what you said, coach. I'm like, oh.
yeah. Yeah.
So just what do you think of the officiating in your area? So I put you on the spot on the girl drama one. So I'll start with this one here. I'll take the heat here.
Okay.
Um
Okay.
I think look, I'll just say it's inconsistent, but I'm really not like necessarily blaming anyone. I think that there are some coaches who don't know the game as well as they think they do.
Hmm.
And I think that there are officials, and look, in many ways being an official is like a thankless job. Like I'm thankful that anyone does it. Like let's be real, like it's a lot of abuse
Yeah.
for not much pay. But I
Yep.
do think that there are officials who just have certain things that they look for more than
Hmm.
others, or certain things that they are like just more aware of what's happening. And I think I would be the same way if I was an official. And so and I think of inconsistency of like situations of like 5 seconds closely guarded. I have refs who are like on that, like they're one,
Hmm.
two, they're on it. Others who I probably guard 50 seconds and they
Yeah.
wouldn't notice, what's
Yeah.
happening, or like 3 seconds in the key, or just things of that nature. And it's never going to be perfect. It's never going to be,
Hmm.
like a ideal situation, especially in high school. And to me, I think what I think has helped me is knowing who my officials are, getting to know them, and just knowing
Yeah.
like what they do or how they call things. And then I think if you
Yeah.
know that, you just sort of deal with it, and you just sort of
Yeah.
know going in, like, look, it's like scouting the other team. It's like scouting your refs too. Like you just know, like, okay, I have so and so. I know how they're going to call it. It
Yep.
doesn't matter what I think. This is just how it's going to be.
Yep.
So now that I know that, like, what can I do with this information, or what can I tell my players so they know, like, hey, every time you go to the rim, you're going to get murdered, and there's not going to be a foul call. So get over
Yeah.
it. Like I just tell you
Right.
right now, it's not going to
Yeah.
happen. But I also do think, and I'm guilty of this too, that I think sometimes we overestimate our understanding of certain things, or what certain things
Hmm.
look like. And I think that something I've really had to learn to let go, and I'm not saying I'm perfect at this, is like those like bang bang 50-50, like sort of like could go either way. Like of course I always think it should go my way, but like
Yeah.
okay, I can
Definitely.
bite my tongue and be realistic here, sort of thing, about a
Yeah.
certain call. And then lastly, to wrap it up, I really think that what we can do as coaches, if we try to think of like what we can do, if there are things that like you're really concerned about, then heck, you have game film, put snippets of stuff, explicitly say concerns you have, send them to whatever your coaching associate or referee association is, and let them know, like, here are some points that I think need to be addressed because here are some of the things that I see. I think that it's really easy for us as coaches to, you know, just talk crap about officials, about things they never do or always do. But like,
Yeah.
we could probably, you know, do a little work ourselves and like having evidence to support this and being willing to have a conversation about these concerns. Otherwise, I don't know what we would expect to have changed, because if we're not providing anything to like say anything, but like it would be like our players saying stuff and not having like anything to back up, like, yeah, okay, whatever. So
Right.
that's my very political overall answer. I feel like I should run for office after, you know, giving an answer like that. So
I agree.
On that note, I'll turn it over to you and let you cut loose on it.
Yeah. I mean, I think of officiating in the area. I mean, I think our officials are, I mean, pretty good. I really don't have any complaints. Like you said, you know, just knowing who they are and getting to know them is important. I guess, like, I would also say, like, if you think that referees should be different, then like you should go become a referee. Like, I mean, because like a lot of our, you know, we have a lot of older referees in our area that have been reffing, which, you know, they don't get any high school games, luckily. But like some of them have been reffing since I was in middle school or elementary school. Like they're the same referees. So like, you know, they're a little bit older, but like, it's kind of like the argument, like, you know, a parent wants to question your coaching. Like, okay, you think you can do it better? Well, you didn't apply for the job. And also like, give me your practice plan. And they can't. So it's like, okay, if you want things to be different, then you become a referee, like see what it's like. So yeah, I mean, I really don't have any complaints. I think I always tell my girls, like, referees are always going to be bad. Like always, like you're never going to get every single call that you think you should get. So you just can't worry about it. Like referee, like you can't let referees take you out of games. So yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, that's funny. I don't know. Like, it's just one of those things where I just don't want to have to worry about it. I don't want to have to like deal with it. And I don't want to, I guess in a way, like anytime I spend like focusing on what refs are doing, like I'm not giving that attention to what my team's doing. And that's not good. And then I feel like even no matter how much you say it, if you're willing to like, you know, yell at or get into it with an official, I feel like your players, even if you tell them not to, like, well, look at what you're doing. So like, of course the player will like be annoyed, like, cause you're annoyed. And if they like you as a coach, they're not going to be happy that you're unhappy, and they're not going to be they're going to be unhappy with the person you're unhappy with too. So it's just one of those things where I try to think like, okay, this is high school, like girls basketball, that this ref doesn't like have it out for me. It's not like there's no gambling line. I don't think like the fix is in or anything here.
Right.
Like, but this isn't that important. There's like 30 people in the stands here. Like, I don't think, you know, this is going to be a huge deal one way or the other. And I think we can get kind of lost in our own worlds thinking about like, oh man, like our program's so huge, so important. Like, you know, man, we're getting rigged and all this. It's like, settle down, coach. I don't think this is the national championship here. Maybe
exactly.
And then to wrap up with your point, I think that if you do ref, and I've had the displeasure of doing it once, I think if you do ref, you realize how fast this game goes. You're like, oh my God, like there's so much happening, so much you have to look for.
Really?
And I did it once, and it was for a middle school, and I was like, all right, I'm retired. I'm done. Of course, you know, I called it perfectly because obviously, I'm just kidding. But I was like, I never want to do this again. This is awful. Like, I don't know how anyone would want to do this. And then quick, I'm going to throw this at you before we wrap up. Have you ever gotten a technical or a warning before? I've gotten a warning. I've never had a technical though.
I actually did get my first ever technical last year.
Did you earn it? Did you?
I didn't. And that's what frustrates me the most, I think, is that I did, like, dang, like I didn't cuss or anything. But it was a very physical game, and I'm glad after the fact that it did happen. only because, like I'm this little white girl that comes into this inner city school, and my team is predominantly Black. So, we go to this school where, it just kind of gives you the willies when you go in, just like going to the boonies, and my girls were saying stuff. So like, it was a very physical game. One of my girls got trucked and I kind of went like this to the refs and he teed me up. But my girls after the game, they were like, Coach, like you went to bat for us. Like, yeah, like you had our back. So like, in that instance, I was glad that it happened because they were like, okay, like that was kind of like when they finally like bought into me, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Like, they were like, okay, like she will go to war for me. Then, I mean, we didn't win the game.
I think player safety is that line that I'm good with.
Yeah.
Like and I've had some choice words about things that I thought were like legit, like flagrant fouls. And I'm like, like just got mauled, like going up to the basket, like not even an attempt to make a play on the ball, like things like that. I will. Yeah. That's the line I'll go over. Like calls about traveling or all this other stuff. Like I whatever, but like player safety, I think you're good if you're willing to step over whatever that line is if your player's safety feel is in danger. So we're good with that. And I think I would just say if you really have that concern and you're you think that again, if you think that ref is just putting your players in an environment of like danger, like have film on that. You should have film on it and be like, hey, like this is what I was concerned about, like this is concerning, especially if it's a team like in your region, in your conference, you're going to play them again or play them next year, right. It's like, and then have that and be like, hey, like when we play this team again, like I'm concerned and so on, like at least like let the refs know beforehand for like the next time, like this is what happened, let you know. And I think good conversation, I think we often see the refs as like the bad guy or like there's this like divider keeping us from talking to them. But a lot of them I talk to are pretty cool people. They're pretty they're just doing their job. Yeah, pretty nice. Yeah, but exactly. More conversation wouldn't hurt. And again, like you said, hey, if things so easy, go and do it. I get emails every week asking about, hey, be a ref, recruit a ref, do this. I'm like, okay, there's a ref shortage. So make it happen. Tell your players to be refs too after they graduate. Let's make some money off that.
Exactly.
They can ref your Sunday youth thing that you do. And
Lord,
they'll probably never ref again, but maybe
probably not.
That's funny. Alrighty, well, thank you guys for sending those questions. This was fun. Coach, thanks for sharing some answers. You made it through the season, though in my mind I think the hardest part is ahead of you right now. For me it would be, but we made it through a season. And thanks for spending some time answering some questions.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me. Those were good questions.
Fun stuff. Thanks, you guys. And thank you guys for listening. This was another edition of the Q&A number 4 of the Basketball Teacher Podcast. We'll see you guys next time.
Thank you for listening to another edition of the Basketball Teacher Podcast. Make sure to connect with us on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter, or reach us directly through email at basketballteacherpodcast@gmail.com. Take care, be safe, and we'll see you next time.